Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. Tonight is the first in a series of presentations about the electric utility, its operations, and energy use trends. This series came about because the electric utility is in the process of performing a rate study as well as beginning to plan for energy procurement beyond 2035. Given several upcoming decision points for the utility, we wanted to provide council with a shared historical perspective. We also want to explain what has changed in the utility industry over the last few decades. Our goal is to provide you with historical perspective so that you have the background information you need to chart our path forward. Tonight, we'll focus on how the utility carries out the city's mission and our key result, which is safely delivering reliable electricity to homes and businesses. Next month, we'll talk about the many different components that go into running a utility. This includes material and equipment to support the utility's operational and capital programs, as well as the utility employees who design, build, and maintain the electric grid infrastructure throughout the city. There are also several behind-the-scenes administrative and regulatory actions our current power provider, IMEA, performs for us. In May, we'll discuss how energy use and priorities have shifted in the past 2 decades as new technologies have emerged and continue to emerge. Finally, we'll tie the entire conversation together this summer. This will coincide with our rate study and an RFP that we've issued for a consultant to provide us with industry forecasts as well as their recommendation on how to procure energy and services beyond 2035. Overall, the utility industry is experiencing many changes, and like any industry, there are numerous unknowns. We believe that having these conversations about how the utility got where it is today will give us a solid footing as we make long-term decisions over the next year. Our electric utility's mission aligns with the city's mission to provide our community with high quality of life and services. We are a municipally owned public power utility. This means that we are here to serve our customers and not make a profit. Local control means that we can prioritize what matters to all of our residential and commercial customers. This also means that the City Council and Public Utility Advisory Board have direct input and control over our budget, rates, and programs, like net metering and our use of renewable energy fund dollars. Due to the unique nature of the energy business, providing service to our 62,000 customers is a complex operation that requires numerous resources, including contractor assistance. The council's role over the electric utility has been compared to that of a privately owned board of directors. Council directly approved rates, fees, and procurements. To achieve our mission, we must focus on safely and reliably delivering power to our residential and commercial customers. What you see on the screen is a key indicator of how the utility is doing. The SAIDI index is the number of minutes customers can expect to be without power annually. While ComEd's 2023 numbers are unavailable, we can see that the utility SAIDI is typically much lower than our regional counterpart. As a side note, as of March 2024, our residential utility rates are 20% lower on average than ComEd's as of this month. The utility continues to invest in its workforce, technology, and equipment to respond more quickly to power outages. To do that, we focus on implementing integrated programs like wireless meter reading and distribution automation. Our warehouse looks for ways to be more sustainable, including reducing waste and refurbishing equipment where practical. Like water, we have begun an aggressive asset inspection program, which will allow us to develop a comprehensive system condition report. This report will allow us to identify problematic or aging equipment and appropriately budget for and prioritize replacement as material becomes available. Our mission and goals drive our end result, delivering power to the people. Let's take a closer look at how that happens. Energy must be generated at the time it is consumed. The city of Naperville does not generate wholesale electricity. Baseload energy is defined as the minimum amount of electric power needed to be supplied to the city's electrical grid to reliably serve the utility customers. Typically, thermal resources such as coal and nuclear generators provide this baseload generation. By their nature, solar and wind are considered intermittent resources. When these resources are unavailable, natural gas generators typically fill the gaps. From the generation source, the movement of wholesale electricity is coordinated by a regional transmission organization. ComEd then delivers this electricity to the city at 5 locations. From there, we distribute it to homes and businesses using our own equipment. The capacity we need is determined by the regional transmission organization and is based on our city's highest use period. Another way to think of capacity is what we need to secure is that we need to secure enough capacity or generation resources with a safety margin to serve our customers at the highest peak hours of the year. Typically for the city of Naperville, this peak consumption occurs between 5 and 7 p.m. Besides capacity, we must make sure that we have enough electricity around the clock to meet our consumption. Another way to think of consumption is that this is what we must secure and deliver energy throughout the year to serve our customers. As this graph shows, consumption is decreasing due to increased energy efficiency awareness and changing behaviors. This is an important financial and resource topic which we will further discuss in May. Now let's discuss who generates our power. Looking at the timeline of how we've traditionally purchased power, you can see that we contracted with ComEd for over 40 years. During that time, ComEd could both make and transmit the power. However, in 1997, deregulation went into effect in Illinois, which meant ComEd could no longer do both. We had 10 years to find someone who could generate power for a city of our size, which was still growing and growing considerably at that time. And deregulation meant that the utility needed to perform some mandated new tasks. Prior to 2007, the utility and city knew and worked with IMEA, our current power provider. In 2007, the council at the time approved a contract with IMEA through September 30th, 2035. Because of Naperville's size, we had to make sure that IMEA could handle our base load needs. Therefore, the contract required IMEA to participate in the Prairie State Generation Campus so that they would have the resources necessary to meet our electricity needs. IMEA has performed all the deregulation required administrative, regulatory, and legal requirements for the city since 2007. Between 2007 and 2011, the city received power from J. Aaron Goldman Sachs. This was an interim solution until Prairie State came online. All this background is to provide you with a better understanding of why we entered into a long-term contract with IMEA. We entered into this agreement for 3 key reasons. First, deregulation. This state action changed how our utility fundamentally obtained power to support our residential and commercial customers. Deregulation created new work for the utility in that it required interfacing with the regional transmission organization as wholesale electricity provider to perform market settlements in addition to capacity and energy purchases. Next, shifts in the energy market. In the mid-2000s, natural gas and electric prices were high. Generally, the open market was seen as a high risk for the city, and that leads us to the third reason, stability. At that time, our community still had open land being developed, and leaders anticipated more being developed in the coming decade. That meant reliable power delivery and stable pricing was at the forefront of leaders' minds. IMEA provided the desired security. It provided and provides risk mitigation because risk is shared with 32 other members. This slide recaps our planned cadence of presentations. Next month, we'll review in depth what is involved in running and operating an electric utility. Beyond getting power, we will explain the various operational needs for our transmission, distribution, and substation assets, as well as begin to discuss the administrative aspects of our operational needs. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any remaining questions.
Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 questions, and I don't need answers right now, but just to tee up maybe if you're going to do another presentation in the future. One is, I really don't know the answer to where did we get our electrons from prior to 1965. I know you said we purchased them from ComEd since 65, and I know our in-house electric utility predates that by many years, so curious what that full history looks like.
We started researching that, and we're unable to find the answer at this time, but we'll continue working on that.
Okay. So
There's a combination of generators out there and things like that, but we'll continue to look for that.
Okay. And then second is when the decision was made to go with IMEA, I'm just curious what that process looked like. You know, right now we're talking about hiring a consultant, seeing different options and the pros and the cons. I don't know, did we go through a similar process at all during that time? Was IMEA the sole possibility? I know ComEd was out because of the reasons you mentioned, but what did the other options look like, and process-wise, how did council handle that at that point in time?
I wasn't here for that, but as I understand it, there was a consultant that was hired and some deliberations by council as to options that were available.
So maybe if we, you know, may or may not be relevant to today's or this year's question, but it would be something that might be interesting to take a look at. And then third is slightly different, but one of your slides talked about the power outages. And it's great that we are much less than ComEd every year, but I will say my neighborhood is like quadruple the average already in the last 2 weeks this year.
Yeah, you've had 3 in the last weeks.
So some neighborhoods with overhead lines get a significant amount, probably driving those averages up, and the rest of the city is probably even better, obviously, than those averages look like on the slide. Curious where we're at. I know in the budget workshop last year we had conversations about a long-term plan to bury the current overhead wires, and just curious, and again, don't need an answer right now, but if we could tee it up in the relatively near future just to give us an overview of where that project might be.
We're currently looking at that as part of our rate study.
All right, thank you.
Councilman White?
I have 2 questions for you. And first of all, you talked about peak times and non-peak times. Is there a way for us to come up with a plan where we can give some type of benefit to residents who use electricity at non-peak times versus peak times, or is there any discussion around that? That's my first question. I'll let you go ahead and answer that.
Absolutely. So we have looked at time of use rates, and our rate consultant did create those rates for us. We are looking to have those implemented as part of our next rate study. So that'll be January 1st, 2025.
Oh, great. And my next question is this: as we discuss extending the contract or not extending the contract, if we decided not to, and if you can kind of describe what would it look like for us in the future? What options would we have? I know there's a lot of discussion, obviously, of lowering our reliability on coal. So if we can go with more renewables, can you kind of give us, you know, your crystal ball as far as what you think that might look like?
So I would say that that's exactly why we went out for a request for proposal for a consultant to basically lay out our options. We, as staff, we've come together and we can put probably about 6 options on the table, but we wouldn't want to jade a consultant's opinion or analysis. So we're in the process of evaluating those RFP responses now. Okay. And the goal of that RFP is to determine, there's actually 2 RFPs out there. One is for financial projections, and the second one is for options available to the city to fulfill all the services that IMEA provides to the city right now.
Okay. Is it possible for the council to get, you kind of mentioned it a little bit right now, but is it possible for us to get the key components of what the RFP is asking for?
Absolutely. We can share the RFP documents.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Groth, I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago with a staffer from another state who indicated they had offlined a bunch of their electrical coal plants at a pace that far exceeded the need for replacement power and their ability to then permit replacement clean energy facilities. And they're now losing all sorts of potential business and infrastructure opportunities that they have for their state. Will you take into consideration the permitting requirements and all the different things that we're going to be needing to weigh in on down the road in your recommendations that come before the council? Because there is going to be that timing. We don't want to further create challenges for our own city and redevelopment opportunities as well. So that's going to be
Yes.
something that's very important to us.
We've heard that from several developers outside the state as well. One of the key points in the RFP that is out and being evaluated right now was to determine not only our options, but the risks of those options as well, the risk and cost of those, each of those options, so that we have a better picture of what we may be trading off for each of an option. So that will be part of a consultant's report.
Fair enough. Seeing no other questions, motion to adjourn?